curious about Korean cultural heritage?
If you are a fan of Korean culture and history, listen up. Korean cultural heritage is based on a 5,000-year history.
The whole country is like a massive museum because it possesses such diverse cultural properties. Let's not wait any longer and take a look.
First, for beginners, for those who are not familiar with Korea, let's start with the world-famous list.
You can see how Korea's beautiful traditional patterns and historical features have been preserved.
And don't forget to experience Korea's intangible cultural heritage. From Gangang-sule to Talchum, there's just so many exciting cultural heritages to experience.
These are for intermediate level tourists who have already visited Korea and its famous attractions. You might even be standing in a World Heritage Site right now.
How about searching for intangible cultural heritage that you can experience? 한소리, 제주 해녀 diving, 김장. Make some unforgettable memories while having fun.
Last but not least, the advanced level. It's the memory of the World Register. Korea possesses an extensive documentary heritage. Korea is serious about documentation and preservation.
A tour of Korean cultural heritage will become a legacy of your own.
Why not make your own Korean cultural heritage travel itinerary?
Isn't it fascinating?
The investigation team draws up measures as concerns grow over a potential clash during another attempt by the team to arrest President Yoon, which looks imminent. Video footage of North Korean soldiers captured alive in Kursk has been revealed by Ukraine, while more disturbing revelations are being shared by South Korea's intelligence agency about those sent to the front line. South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-il meets his Japanese counterpart Takeshi Iwaya in Seoul for talks on the two neighbors' bilateral relations and their three-way cooperation with the U.S. It's January 13th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. It is likely that a second arrest attempt against the president will take place within this week. Meanwhile, the police are intensifying their investigation into the leadership of the Presidential Security Service. We go live to our correspondent Yoon, who is near the presidential residence. Yoon, any updates on the CIO's execution of the arrest of the president?
Hello, Jang-min. I've been monitoring the situation around the presidential residence since this morning in Hannam-dong, Yongsan-gu District, Central Seoul. Today is the 7th day since the new arrest warrant was issued for President Yoon Suk-yeol, but there are still no signs of the CIO taking action to execute the warrant. As concerns rise over potential clashes during the execution of President Yoon Suk-yeol's arrest warrant, the CIO and the police are finalizing plans to minimize conflict and prevent harm or violence. On Monday, the CIO announced it sent cooperation requests to the Ministry of National Defense and Presidential Security Service the night before, asking for their help in executing the warrant. The CIO also warned these agencies about possible legal consequences and compensation for any injuries or damage. At the same time, it reassured Presidential Security Service staff, saying that refusing unlawful orders is not a failure of duty. Acting President and Deputy Prime Minister Choi Sang-mok on Monday directed the police and Presidential Security Service to ensure orderly law enforcement and protect the safety of the officials involved in the process. He stressed that if any conflict happens among national agencies, it will leave a lasting mark on South Korea's constitutional history. Meanwhile, former chief of the Presidential Security Service, Park Jong-jun, who unexpectedly resigned last Friday, is undergoing his third round of questioning, which started this morning. At the same time, the police are ramping up their investigation into the leadership of the Presidential Security Service. Among them is Kim Shin, the head of the Family Security for the president, who has been charged with obstructing official duties and was ordered to appear on Tuesday.
What has been the president's stance on his arrest warrant?
There has been no change in President Yoon's stance, while his legal team reaffirmed today that the arrest warrant is unlawful, illegal, and unjust. They also issued a statement addressing requests for officials to show their ID cards and reveal their faces for identity verification during the execution process. President Yoon's lawyer also posted on social media ahead of tomorrow's first hearing at the Constitutional Court. He said that if the president attends the hearing, he will explain the reasons for declaring martial law. He added that if the president is arrested, he's likely to remain silent and question which issue is more important and what are the people more interested in with greater news value.
Yoon, and how is the situation there near the presidential residence?
Jung-min, the protests have grown noticeably larger and more intense throughout the day despite the cold weather. Supporters are seen chanting, "I'm Yoon Suk-yeol, protect Yoon Suk-yeol," while opponents are calling for his immediate resignation and the execution of the arrest warrant. It was reported that over the weekend, a man threatened counter-protesters with a weapon but was arrested with no injuries. Police set up barricades to prevent clashes, but tensions remain high, raising concern about potential violence. That's all I have for you, Jung-min.
All right, Yoon, thank you for the latest from the president's residential area. President Yoon's impeachment trial begins on Tuesday with the first hearing scheduled for 2 p.m. The trial already faces a rocky start, with Yoon's legal team disputing much of the proceedings and filing an objection to the first session. We have our correspondent Oh Soo-young on the line at the Constitutional Court to provide us with the latest. Soo-young, President Yoon's trial hearing kicks off tomorrow, but he will not be showing up at the hearing.
That's right, Jung-min. Yoon's legal team on Monday afternoon filed an objection against the first trial hearing on Tuesday, raising procedural issues. This comes after it revealed on Sunday that the president wouldn't be attending. Now, Yoon's plan to miss the first hearing doesn't really come as a surprise, given that his team has already indicated that they need more time for preparations, and they've also raised issues with the way that the Constitutional Court is conducting the hearings. His team today filed an objection to how the Constitutional Court scheduled 5 hearing dates without consulting the representatives, and further raised concerns over the court's decision to obtain records from ongoing trials and investigations, arguing that such evidence acquisition is prohibited under the Constitutional Court Act. The court's press officer before this announcement on Monday, said that it is not making any violations and that without the party's presence at the first session, the hearing is likely to end rather quickly. Now, former President Park Geun-hye's first trial hearing for her impeachment, it lasted around 9 minutes due to her absence. Well, if President Yoon skips the first session tomorrow, then it would have to be rescheduled by the judges. But if he misses the second one, then the court is allowed to proceed without him.
Also, pre-trial hearings for Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's impeachment began on Monday, which critics say is procedurally questionable. How did it go?
Yes, the first preparatory hearing for Prime Minister Han began at 4 p.m. today, 17 days after the National Assembly pushed for a vote to impeach him when he refused to give in to political demands by the opposition party, which holds a majority in Parliament. Now, during the session, justices aimed to outline the main arguments made by Han's side and the Assembly panel. The National Assembly set out 5 grounds for impeachment, including Han's veto of 2 controversial bills, and an accusation of participating in the short-lived martial law decree. It also cited his plan to conduct state governance between the ruling party and the government after the declaration of martial law, as well as Han's refusal to appoint special prosecutors and constitutional court justices. Now, all of these accusations would have to be backed by evidence. Now, Han's lawyers argued that the Prime Minister had not taken part in the martial law decision nor its execution, and that the acting president's appointment of justices is a responsibility but not an obligation. They also said that Han had in fact offered to appoint justices once there would be a bipartisan agreement. Now, but here the key argument is expected to be over the validity of the Assembly's impeachment motion. Han, who was serving as acting president at the time, was impeached under voting standards of a simple majority that applies to the Prime Minister rather than a 2/3 majority which applies to the president. So this really reflects the stance of the ruling party as well, which would like to see Han reinstated, particularly as his successor as acting president, Choi Sang-mok, appointed 2 constitutional court justices, which would speed up the trial of President Yoon Suk-yeol, and it would presumably lead to an early presidential election that favors the opposition party. Well, Monday's hearing lasted for about an hour, much longer than expected, as Prime Minister Han and the National Assembly side, they clashed over the grounds for arguments. The lead justice therefore decided to call another pre-trial hearing for February 5th.
Thanks to Yoon for the coverage. Appreciate it. At the National Assembly, acting President Choi Sang-mok sat down separately with the heads of rival political parties today to discuss the execution of the warrant authorizing the president's arrest, as well as the disputed special probe bill. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon covers those talks.
Acting President and Deputy Prime Minister for Finance Choi Sang-mok has addressed the seemingly imminent second execution of the arrest warrant for President Yoon Suk-yeol with the leaders of the 2 main parties. This came as Choi paid a visit to the National Assembly on Monday and separately met with the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea leader Lee Jae-myung and ruling People Power Party's interim leader Kwon Young-se with the same message.
Regarding the ongoing execution of arrest warrants, under no circumstances should citizens be harmed or should unfortunate incidents arise from physical confrontations. I have repeatedly emphasized this to the relevant agencies, but I also ask for efforts at the parliamentary level.
However, the DP's Lee Jae-myung did not agree with Choi's stance. He says Choi's job as the interim leader of the government is to prevent situations where court-issued warrants are obstructed by force when being carried out by the police, in reference to the Presidential Security Service's plan to protect Yoon from being detained.
Well, saying something like we shouldn't arrest a suspect because they might resist feels a bit off to me. I don't think that's the right approach.
The ruling PPP's interim leader Kwon Young-se sided with Choi in that Choi needs to make sure no party acts in a way that could lead to accidents.
The safety of citizens is paramount, and just as important as the matters within the National Assembly is the reputation of South Korea. As this is an issue that directly impacts the nation's dignity, I urge appropriate measures to be taken.
Another key topic for Che's two meetings was a special probe bill against President Yoon's alleged insurrection. He had previously vetoed the first insurrection special probe bill 2 weeks ago, claiming the bill seemed unconstitutional. The opposition lawmakers are looking to unilaterally pass another special probe bill, and he requested that the two parties have sufficient discussions before passing the bill.
Regarding the special prosecutor bill, which is expected to be discussed by the ruling and opposition parties, I request that both sides work together to draft a bill free of unconstitutional elements.
On top of this, Che requested that the gap across the aisle narrows and that the two sides become one team to boost the suffering economy. He reiterated the importance of the recently kicked off joint consultative body between government and rival parties to discuss state affairs to swiftly pass necessary laws to boost the economy. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In other news, the Japanese foreign minister is currently in Seoul for a 2-day visit and discussed ways to develop bilateral cooperation with his South Korean counterpart, as well as trilateral cooperation with the United States ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration next week. Our foreign affairs correspondent Pei Yun-ji has this report.
The top diplomats of South Korea and Japan sat down for talks in Seoul on Monday as the two countries marked the 60th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic ties this year. South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol and his Japanese counterpart, Takeshi Iwaya, have held phone calls on 2 occasions since the brief imposition of martial law on December 3rd. But this is the first time they've met in person since the political turmoil. In a joint press conference, the two officials stressed the importance of bilateral cooperation, as well as the 3-way cooperation between South Korea, Japan, and the United States. Iwaya, who's set to attend Trump's inauguration ceremony next week, said he plans to tell the incoming U.S. administration that trilateral cooperation is crucial.
If circumstances allow, I am currently coordinating to attend the U.S. presidential inauguration scheduled for January 20th. At the event, I intend to clearly convey to the new U.S. administration that the strategic cooperation between Japan, the U.S. and South Korea is more important than ever.
Meanwhile, when asked how South Korea will handle the historical tensions between Seoul and Tokyo, which has been a thorn in diplomatic relations for decades, Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol said he plans to closely cooperate with his Japanese counterpart to work towards developing a future-oriented relationship.
I plan to closely cooperate with Foreign Minister Iwaya to reduce the various disruptions in the bilateral relationship caused by historical issues, and work toward developing a future-oriented relationship.
Before the meeting, the Japanese foreign minister visited the Seoul National Cemetery and paid his respects to the fallen heroes. This marked the first time in almost 7 years that a Japanese foreign minister has visited the burial ground to offer condolences, which appears to be a move to show that Tokyo is willing to improve bilateral relations. The top Japanese diplomat is also expected to meet with acting President Choi Sang-mok on Tuesday before leaving Seoul. Pei Yun-ji, Arirang News.
South Korea's National Intelligence Service has suggested that U.S. President-elect Donald Trump might pursue dialogue with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during his second term. This assessment was shared during a briefing to the National Assembly Intelligence Committee on Monday, noting that Trump's recent presidential envoy and deputy national security advisor appointments further indicate a willingness to explore diplomatic talks, possibly smaller-scale agreements such as a nuclear freeze or an arms reduction. It also noted North Korea's recent hardline stance against the U.S., supported by key personnel changes in Pyongyang's leadership, were part of efforts to strengthen its ties with Russia. Video footage of 2 North Korean troops detained by Ukraine has been shared which insinuates their initial ignorance of actual deployment to the war zone between Ukraine and Russia. Park Go-nu has the details.
Interrogation footage of the 2 injured North Korean soldiers captured in the Kursk region by Ukraine last week was revealed over the weekend.
누구랑 싸운다고 했어?
훈련을 실전처럼 해본다고 했어요.
다시 북한으로 돌아가고 싶어?
우크라이나 사람들은 맞지 않은가요? 여기서 살고 싶어요.
The 2 soldiers were transported to Kyiv for medical care after they were caught. One of the soldiers was even found with the Russian military ID under a different name and registered in the Tuva Republic. The Security Service of Ukraine has been communicating with them with the help of South Korea's National Intelligence Service, as they only speak Korean. The NIS said Monday that the North Korean soldiers deployed in Russia were supposed to commit suicide or blow themselves up before being captured. It added that around 300 of the North soldiers in Russia have been killed, with 2,700 wounded. On Sunday local time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky offered to swap captured North Koreans for Ukrainian troops in a proposal written in English, Ukrainian, and also Korean. The offer says Ukraine is ready to hand over Kim Jong-un soldiers to him in exchange for Ukrainian soldiers. Zelensky said there's no doubt that Russia is dependent on military assistance from North Korea, adding that it's only a matter of time before more North Korean soldiers are captured. He also said if the North Korean soldiers did not wish to return to the north, there were other options for them to stay. South Korea's Ministry of Unification shared its stance on the issue.
There are separate international laws and treaties regarding prisoners of war. The issue should be discussed with relevant countries along with a review of international law. There's nothing to comment on with certainty at this point.
One expert shared possible scenarios under the Geneva Convention.
The repatriation of North Korean troops will depend on legal rulings regarding their status as parties to the conflict, while South Korea as a non-belligerent may not be a transfer destination. That cannot be entirely ruled out, as forcibly repatriating prisoners against their will could violate international human rights laws. Exceptions always exist.
Though the North Korean prisoners have not yet commented on defecting to South Korea, the NIS said it'll discuss this with Ukraine if such requests are made. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Neat. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Let us first start with badminton. Another championship win for An Se-young.
Yes, this time it's the Malaysia Open, the first international tournament of the new year. On Sunday, An beat world number 2 Wang Zhiyi of China 2-0, 21-17, 21-7. The match lasted just 44 minutes following a commanding performance from An. She found herself behind 11-8 in the first game, but hit back with 9 points in a row to gain the upper hand. The second game saw An secure an 11-2 lead at one stage. The Malaysia Open is one of the highest tier tournaments on the BWF Tour and is classed as a Super 1000 event. Anne won in Malaysia last year too, and this year was able to exact revenge on an opponent she lost to in the Denmark Open last November and the World Tour Finals a month later. Elsewhere, the team of So Sung-jae and Kim Won-ho won the men's doubles final. All three will be at the World Tour Super 750 India Open later this week.
Moving on to football now. An assist for Son Heung-min, but Yang Min-hyuk was nowhere to be seen for Spurs.
Yes, that's right. Many expected Yang Min-hyuk to make his Spurs debut in the FA Cup third round against Tamworth, a side from the fifth tier made up of part-time players. But he was left out altogether, and Son Heung-min was on the bench with Spurs manager Ange Postecoglou aiming to reduce the workload of his captain. But after 90 minutes on an artificial pitch with the score at 0-0 and a potential upset on the cards, Son was brought on at the start of extra time. In the 107th minute, he provided an assist for Dejan Kulusevski to make it 2-0. Spurs eventually won the game 3-0 and will face Aston Villa in the fourth round. Meanwhile, over in the French capital, there was an assist for another South Korean national team star. Lee Gang-in supplied Ousmane Dembele on 13 minutes to open the scoring for Paris Saint-Germain at home to Saint Etienne in the French top flight. It was Lee's third league assist of the season, and PSG sits 7 points clear at the top of the table.
And finally, we learned on Friday that the new K-League season will begin in mid-February.
Yes, that's right. February 15th, with Pohang Steelers hosting Daejeon Hanan Citizen at 1 p.m. That is the official curtain raiser for the 2025 season. It's a little earlier than usual on account of the EAFF E1 Championship set to take place in South Korea in July. Now, all round one matches are in the south of the country, where the weather is a little bit warmer. Defending champions Ulsan HD host K-League 1 newcomers FC Anyang the following day. FC Seoul and Jesse Lingard start away to Jeju SK. Gwangju FC host Suwon FC, Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors entertain Gimcheon Sangmu, and Daegu FC take on Gangwon FC. The regular season will run until early October before the league splits into two, Final A and Final B. Overseas fans can watch for free on tv.kleague.com.
All right, thanks for this. See you next week.
Thank you.
The daytime temperature in Seoul rose to 6 degrees Celsius today, which is about 3 degrees higher than yesterday. With much warmer conditions, ultrafine dust became a problem again. The air quality in the Seoul metropolitan area, the Chungcheongdo provinces, Gangwon-do province, and the Gyeongsangbuk-do province will see bad levels of ultrafine dust tomorrow. Where light snow and rain is expected to spread to the Chungcheongdo provinces and some southern inland areas overnight. The expected amount of snow is up to 5 centimeters in Gangwon-do province. Other areas, including Seoul, will see around 1 centimeter of snow. Tomorrow, Gwangju will start off at 0 degrees, Busan at 3 degrees. Highs will move up to 4 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, Daegu 10 degrees. Another round of rain or snow is forecast for the Jeollado provinces and Jeju Island in the second half of the week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session
up next.
How to survive in Korea. Barbecue restaurants. Step 1. Taking care of your clothes. Put your jacket in the plastic bag. Seal it tight. If the stool flips open, store your clothes inside. Wearing light colours, grab an apron. It's the best defence against oil splatter and smoke. Step 2. Bottomless side dishes. Basic side dishes at a barbecue restaurant. Eat and eat as much as you want. Side dishes come with free refills. Oh, and if you don't see this sign, just ask, 사장님, 여기 밑반찬 좀 더 주세요. Simple, isn't it? Step 3. Grilling meat. There are various kinds of samgyeopsal in Korea. Place the meat on the grill. Turn it over when golden. And again when it looks done. Again and again and again. Step 4. Sam style. You aren't taking bites of sam like a taco, are you? In Korea, we have it in one bite. A pro tip here. Add only as much as you can handle in a bite. Gotta avoid awkward situations. Step 5. Enjoy the perks. After the meal, enjoy the perks offered as a Korean restaurant. Fabric refreshers get rid of the barbecue smell, while mint candies freshen your breath. Did you survive the barbecue restaurant? Hang on. Are you here with someone you want to impress? Then let's skip the garlic. Who knows what will happen?
Our lives are swept into a vortex of this intricately connected world. Providing an in-depth exploration of global security, diplomacy, economy, and culture to offer a unique international perspective. Embark on a global news journey with the Geovista today.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring you today's most pressing issues from across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gen. South Korea continues to grapple with its political crisis involving President Yoon Suk-yeol, who faces potential arrest over his alleged role in a botched martial law attempt. The Corruption Investigation Office is preparing to execute an arrest warrant, but tensions have escalated after a standoff between the CIO and the Presidential Security Service. Acting President Choi Sang-mok has called for restraint, suggesting a special prosecutor to resolve the situation. Now, meanwhile, Yoon's lawyers said that the president will not attend the first hearing at the Constitutional Court scheduled for Tuesday, citing safety concerns over the CIO's attempts to detain him. Yoon's side claims that concerns regarding Yoon's personal safety and security must be resolved before he can appear before the Constitutional Court. For more on the latest, we are joined by attorney An Jun-sung here in the studio with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
And also joining us via Zoom is attorney Kim Ji-soo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's start with Mr. An, the director of the Presidential Security Service, Park Jong-jun, who was charged with obstructing the execution of the arrest warrant for President Yoon Suk-yeol, submitted his resignation, and he also suddenly appeared at the police station. What's the background behind this? And also, can we consider the resignation of Park and his police appearance as a sign of a rift in the leadership of the PSS?
Well, it's very interesting because I was a little surprised when you show up. I didn't expect that he showed up to the police station. I guess there's two possible reasons for that. And first one is a personal reason. I guess he tried to avoid the worst scenario during the criminal investigation against him. Means that he didn't want to get arrested, physically arrested on live TV. That's public investment, right? And second is a professional perspective. I guess that in the beginning I thought he was kind of a surprise tactics to the police. In a way of the psychological warfare, right? But later I found that regardless of the true intent, I think that his resignation and appearance worked as a strong message to the employee at the security services, basically means that drop the weapon and surrender like me, basically. I think that's interesting. What happening right now is sending message to the employees, to me, right?
Now, what about Ms. Kim? What kind of impact do you think the vacancy of the director of the Presidential Security Service have on the execution of the arrest warrant? Some say, it might be beneficial, while others say with only the hardline leadership remaining, security strategies will become even more fortified. What's your view?
Well, it's a definite fact that Park Jong-jun stepping down as the head of the Presidential Security Service it's been a really big deal. And honestly, it's hard to say how this will play out. It could go either way depending on what happens next. However, on the one hand, his resign could make things easier for the police and the CIO to execute his warrant, since losing a leader like Park might throw the security service off balance. And without strong leaders, there's a chance that the team might not cooperate or be confident. And let's not forget that the police are already targeting other top officials. So the pressure inside the service has to be mounting severely. And it already feels like the cracks are starting to show, and that could work in favor of the arrest warrant being executed. However, on the flip side, the new leadership under Kim Jong-un is taking a much tougher stance. He's known to be a hardliner in the security service, and he's one of the most closest allies to President Yoon. So if anything, he might take an even tougher stance, treating the situations like a fight for survival. So yes, it is complicated, but at the end, it's all about how well the CIO and the police handle this. And they'll need to be sharp, adaptable, and calm to make sure that this doesn't spiral into an even bigger mess. And this is no easy road, definitely. However, it's one road they will have to navigate carefully in order to solve this crisis.
Right. Just as our Ms. Kim has mentioned, amid this intensifying conflict between the CIO and Presidential Security Service, Acting President Choi Sang-mok has proposed a special prosecutor for insurrection as an option to, the current situation. What do you think about this? Do you think it could resolve the standoff?
Well, first time I heard the news, I was confused and basically saying that, oh, what's he talking about, basically. So at this moment, I think that he publicly saying that, repeatedly talking about, say, first priority as the minister of the economies, Korean economy is the top priority. But it seems that he doesn't really have neutrality anymore because that, in a way, the way he basically proposed the special prosecutor, which he has been rejected. the bill, passed by the National Assembly already. So I guess that before we talk about something that we care, first priority is the economy, and let's do it as it flow, and talk about foreign investment, economy issues. But the way he acting is like it's not consistent. That his act and word is not consistent, and I guess I think he's trying to be to the best job to his boss, President Yoon Suk-yeol. Still, that's the really conflict of interest issue that he's now, although he's an acting president, he have to do in the best interest of public, citizen of Korea, not the president himself. So that's the real concerning, and I hope he, wake up and make right choices from tomorrow. I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Now, despite Acting President Choi Sang-mok's request for an agreement between the ruling and opposition parties, there still is fierce debate over the law for a special prosecutor for insurrection. Ms. Kim, what are the main points of contention between rival parties?
Well, it's definite that the ruling and the opposition parties are miles apart, and here's why they are divided. So first, there's a conflict over what the law is mainly about. The opposition party wants to include allegations, including treasons and even foreign exchange violations. For example, the President Yoon's administration tried to use tensions with North Korea as a pretext for declaring martial law. However, the ruling party strongly is opposing for this, saying that it is excessive and that it is going too far by adding these charges. And also they're mentioning that by punishing legitimate military and governmental actions might endanger the country itself. And they are also worrying that the scope of the investigation is too broad, that it could spiral out of control. And there is another debate over ways of selecting special prosecutors. So the opposition party is suggesting letting the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to choose the prosecutor to make it much more neutral. However, the ruling party still disagrees with this way of choosing the prosecutor, still saying that there needs to be more neutral selectors like the bar associations to ensure fairness. And regarding why is this taking so long, they're also showing different opinions on that. So the opposition party is actually accusing the ruling party of stalling to protect President Yoon. However, meanwhile, the ruling party is saying that the opposition is just rushing the process itself and not giving enough time to proper discussion. And in short, it's a battle over what the investigation should cover, who should lead it, and how fast it should move. And both sides are digging their heels, so this debate is far from over.
Right, so it really does look like it's going to take some time with a lot of factors to decide. Now, meanwhile, Mr. An, the Constitutional Court is currently deliberating on Yoon's constitutional dispute and the injunction request regarding the second arrest warrant. What kind of aspects will the Constitutional Court focus on its review?
Well, first, I have a personal comment or general comment about the situation because someone like me studied in the United States, and it's very shocking every morning that there's something happening. And for your information, the U.S. doesn't have a constitutional court. I mean, some very few countries. Well, I think Japan and some European countries have a constitutional court. United States, the Supreme Court will have the constitutionality test. But when you talk about the constitutional court, it was designed to decide on the constitutionality of the matter or the law, right? Something like that, right? But here, these days, I mean, when the Yoon's legal team basically dumping so much procedural issues, not the substantive issue more than like that, but kind of legally challenging the validity of the arrest warrant at the constitutional court, to me, doesn't make sense at all. And then you talk about the legal criminal issue, you should go to criminal court, not the constitutional court. If you keep going to constitutional court, I mean, they'll be saying they're not taking any action because that, I think basically one of the litigation strategy, what you do on the criminal case, especially when you try to think that you are at kind of a disadvantaged position, right? You try to get us some time in a way to dumping so much document or evidence to the court, basically wasting their time, basically, so slow down the process. I think that's how they see it. And then from the court perspective, I don't think they can take it, and Yoon's legal team approach is sincere. It's not really sincere effort to do, speed up the process. It's more like delaying as much as time as, they're possible. So that's very concerning, and it's now quite somehow, to me, is disrespect to the court and the people in general public in Korea, I think.
Mm-hmm. So, in terms of the Constitutional Court's perspective, what kind of point do you think they would focus on?
I think that rather than talk about substantiality of the legal matter, it's more like they will focus on, they will try prioritize the presidential impeachment, more right? So they will focus, they started the prime minister impeachment process, right? And they will prioritize that impeachment process against the President Yoon Suk-yeol, and then set aside everything else and just focus on, because there are a lot of things going on right now. So if you keep, throwing so much document and different legal procedural matters to the Constitutional Court, only to delay to their process. So I guess they're going to take it out, ignore the many unsubstantial issues, and focus on the impeachment process against the President Yoon Suk-yeol.
Right. So among all, they will focus on the impeachment issue. Now, to Ms. Kim, President Yoon's side has stated that they will not comply with the execution of the arrest warrant, but are willing to comply if a proper detention warrant is filed, or they will proceed with prosecution based on the current investigation. How should this wording be interpreted?
Well, this feels like a very calculated move, both legally and politically. So first, legally, it doesn't really add up for right now. The court has already ruled that the warrant itself is valid and dismissed claims from Yoon's side that it was inappropriate. His teams are arguing that the warrant itself is unlawful and accusing the court of exceeding its authority. However, the court has rejected these kind of objections, saying that the warrant itself is valid and that the investigation falls under the authority of the CIO. So once again, the court has confirmed that it has jurisdiction over the case since Yoon's residence is within its area. So the rejection of his objections only reinforces that the legal grounds for the warrants are quite solid here. And politically, this seems like a stalling tactic to rally his supporters. By delaying the process, he's creating more time to build momentum and frame this as a kind of a political persecution. There are already reports of many supporters gathering near his residence, and even some lawmakers from his party are showing up at protests against the arrest. So it feels like he's trying to turn this into a public battlefield to strengthen his space. And at the end of the day, it's hard to see that anything other than a move to buy time and build political pressures right now.
Indeed, there are growing concerns that this is a tactic to delay the whole process. Now, Mr. An, the CIO has announced that the validity period of the arrest warrant for President Yoon, which was reissued, is about 2 weeks. When and how do you expect it to take place?
The interesting question. Actually, after I read the news about the reissuing of this arrest warrant, I was wondering about the duration. And then, well, that's according to the press, if they expected or speculated about 2 weeks, but that never admitted it's 2 weeks or something less, right? So we have to be clear that 2 weeks is a presumption, right? Made by press. And assuming that's 2 weeks, I guess they got already 1 week passed, so another week is going on. It's interesting again. Think about what would happen after impeachment process is over. And if you're the defendant, you will say, I'm the innocent, I'm going to challenge everything. I'll go to constitutional court. I will put my personal bodyguard in my premises and try to prevent police getting to my room because I have my right. Just I would like to what President Yoon do, right? That's very concerning as they who study law and practice law, and very concerning about what after effect about what President Yoon doing right now, because that will will have very adverse effect. It's really shame of public embarrassment to the general, not only general public, on the international community, saying that Korea is not controlled by the law. It's someone like who have power, put higher people. It's very really very bad public image on it. But let's go back to what happening about timing issue. Assuming that 2 weeks of the timing, I guess I think they're working on the different separate arrest warrant on deputy director of the security services, and I think that if the court issue that arrest warrant against the deputy director, they will proceed with it. And then maybe 2 phrases, and they get into the premises with showing that arrest warrant for the deputy director, and get into premises and arrest him, and then get him back, and then execute it second one at that premise. Doesn't have to get out, and if they can do it two different phrases. I think that's the way. That's also the expected by the press, right? They're thinking about maybe that's safer, and then the deputy director of security service doesn't have constitutional protection as the president, right? So we cannot say anything, and legally, it is legitimate to get into premise because this arrest warrant is limited to the deputy director. Right? And the secret service, and get in there and then arrest both in timely, right? I think that's the way, maybe safer way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for clarifying that for us. Now, like I said in our beginning, in the first hearing for impeachment trial, which is scheduled for the 14th, which is tomorrow, President Yoon's side said that he will not attend due to safety concerns. Could you walk us through how the trial would unfold if the president does not attend?
It's like every time it's very challenging, very interesting, because the way I think the public campaign is kind of public campaign made by Yoon's legal team. That's really a ridiculous argument because any litigation, especially criminal litigation, you have a right to attend your own criminal litigation because you can basically represent yourself, right? Your constitutional right to speak for yourself. That's the idea is that you protect their criminal right to defend himself or herself, right? But here, they seem to like kind of a distorted kind of fact, saying that, they, in a way that a CIO manipulates system and, KCC try to help CIO manipulating, everything. But by law, right, the physical attendance is not a legal requirement, right? They have a right to attend, right? And you cannot prevent the defendant from showing up to the court because they have a constitutional right to protect their interests, right? And so you have a right to attend the hearing, and he decide not to attend it. So basically, we'll say it's default. Basically, it's a default process. They can proceed it without him. So if he doesn't show up tomorrow, and on the 14th, 14th tomorrow? Tomorrow. 14th, right. And then the Thursday, I think the second hearing, they will proceed without him. So it's only delay tactics and doesn't really change any substantially. That's the issue, right?
So if he continues not to attend?
Only once. If he doesn't show once, and they can proceed without him.
Only once?
Yeah.
All right. Now, President Yoon's side claims that the impeachment trial is progressing very quickly. Ms. Kim, however, the Constitutional Court says that the trial speed is not unusual. How does this compare to previous cases, and when do you expect the final ruling to be issued?
Like I mentioned before, the only people who are accusing that this process is rushing is President Yoon himself and his parties. Well, it is evident that the prompt action is very necessary in such kind of circumstances. There is a kind of a constitutional effectively compromise, and governments functionally severely hindered. The Constitutional Court has a clear responsibility and an obligation to act without unnecessary delays and work to restore order as swiftly as possible. And looking at past cases, this pace actually makes sense. Take former President Park Geun-hye, for example. Her impeachment trial ended in just 91 days, and before that, President Roh Moo-hyun's trial took only 63 days. And in both cases, the court recognized the urgency of resolving a national crisis and acted very quick and swiftly. So basically, the same thing is happening right over here. The Constitutional Court sees this as a constitutional emergency, and delaying the process itself would only extend the uncertainty and chaos. So looking at how the court has handled the two preparatory sessions, it seems that they're treating this as an urgent matter as possible, and I don't think they will drag it out unnecessarily. And considering that the justices Moon Hyung-bae and Lee Mi-sun are retiring in April, I'd expect a decision to come out sometimes between late February and mid-March.
Right, so let's hope this turmoil to be arranged and settled as soon as possible. I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up our discussion right here. Many thanks for your insights, Mr. An.
Thank you.
And also, Ms. Kim, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business